Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 9 of season 2 of the Schoolyard Podcast, brought to you by School Specialty. I'm your host, Nancy Chung, a fun-loving teacher and content creator, also known as Fancy Nancy and Fifth on social media, and I'm thrilled that you're here. A special shout out to School Specialty, who offers essential educational supplies and complete learning environment solutions to help you transform more than classrooms. This is the Schoolyard Podcast, a podcast by educators for educators where the magic of learning unfolds. Reflective classrooms, setting and achieving teaching goals, isn't just another dry education manual, it's your ticket to classroom transformation. Did you know that studies show reflective teaching practices can boost student engagement by up to 40%? This game-changing approach turns your classroom into a learning lab where both you and your students become explorers of knowledge. You'll discover how to set goals that actually stick, adapt your teaching on the fly, because let's face it, no lesson plan survives first contact with students, and create an atmosphere where aha moments happen daily. We are also diving into how social-emotional learning, SEL, intertwines with reflective teaching, showing you how to nurture not just academic growth, but emotional intelligence too. Research indicates that integrating SEL can lead to an 11% increase in academic achievement. Packed with real-world examples and sprinkled with humor, this episode will have you reimagining your teaching methods and fostering well-rounded, resilient learners. Get ready to unleash the full potential of your students and yourself in ways you never thought possible. Today's guest, Kim Gameroz, a close friend of mine, is a change agent and founder of Teaching Inside Out, revolutionizing classrooms through a systematic approach to teaching social and emotional skills. With over 15 years of experience coaching, training, and mentoring educators, students, and families globally, Kim has spoken at numerous conferences, consults for school districts, serves on SEL panels, and contributes to various publications and podcasts. Through Teaching Inside Out, as well as her second company, Celebrate Good Times, she has created a supportive community for heart-centered educators nationwide, where she is committed to making teachers feel seen, valued, and celebrated at her events and teacher retreats. Kim's upcoming book, Becoming the Bison, is set to be published in 2025. Welcome to the Schoolyard, Kim.
Oh my gosh, I am so happy to be here. It's wild, Nancy, listening to you say all of that. And I go right back in time and go, sister, you have been along the entire time. You've been there since the beginning.
Kim is my dear friend. We used to teach in the same district, and we were big fans of each other. And we were, like friends in real life, IRL. And, I'm your number one fan. I've been your number one fan for several years, right? Like maybe a decade, several years, many years.
I think a decade.
Yeah. And so so to give a little background on Kim, besides the very formal introduction that I've done, Kim was so successful in her own classroom that she was hired as our coach, and she was instructing and she was working with so many teachers within our district to work with like the SEL things, but classroom management and the whole reflective teaching piece. And she was just a master, and people were coming to her saying, how are you getting your students to do what they do? How is this possible? And I think we were at happy hour and we were discussing your dreams, like, because you are an idealist, you dream and you are a planner, and you were just sharing with me and our friends all the things you want to do. And I was like, wow, Kim, I was just sitting there inspired. And the fact that you took that risk and you moved to another state, started your own business, and it's thriving. Kim, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. And I'm so honored to have you here on our podcast today.
Girl, thank you. Such an honor to be with you, honestly. Watching you, same, right back to you. I'm like, I'm going to be your reflection right now, this mirror, because watching you do what you've been doing, it's an honor for me. I'm so dang proud of you.
Thank you. It's a big love fest over here today. Okay, so would you mind sharing your journey as an educator and what led you to focus on social emotional learning and behavior management in the classroom?
Yeah. So I have a psychology background and a dance background, and I thought that I was just going to be a dance teacher for life until I got into high school dance team coaching. And I was like, oh, I need to be in the classroom. Like I'm finding myself teaching my dancers how to write essays. This is not normal. And I mean, I really was thinking I was going to teach, I don't know, high school, middle school. And I ended up teaching first graders, little babies who had only been out of diapers for 3 years. And I was like, okay, I mean, this is the plan and this is where I am. And let me tell you, it's no joke. I mean, year after year after year. I mean, first grade alone is tough, right? The littles are it's a beast of its own. However, year after year, there were just so many more kids that were coming in, you know this, with autism, diagnosed or undiagnosed,
Mm-hmm.
ADD, ADHD. I
Mm-hmm.
had a blind student at one time, spina bifida, just
And
so
anxiety, right?
yes. Oh my God. And trauma, like the list goes on and on.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself sometimes at a loss for tools and
Mm-hmm.
resources and strategies. And I just knew that, I mean, I could get us through the year. I could get us through the day. I could get us through the month. I could get us through the year. But then these kids went on to the next grade level. And
Mm-hmm.
now those big behaviors were bigger, scarier. And now my colleagues were
Mm-hmm.
the ones having anxiety, right?
Oh,
And,
right.
and it's really, really scary to think, is this the future? Like this is just how it's going to be in classrooms and schools.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and searched for an answer. And so I thought in my brain, I was thinking, if my students are going to a speech pathologist and they're spending a chunk of time during the school day, well, I'm with them the rest of the school day. So we've got to be on the same page. We have to speak the same language. We have to have the same sort of strategies going on here. And so I went to my speech pathologist friend at the time and I was like, tell me, give me your magic. And she sent me home with some books and I was honestly like, oh my gosh, you mean these kids don't have these,
Mm-hmm.
strategies and tools within them? They really struggle with all things social. They
Mm-hmm.
can't navigate the social world. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay, well, I can take all of this and I can bring it into my classroom. It's going to be the way that I speak, the way that I teach.
Mm-hmm.
And my brain just kind of unlocked from there. And I went to, I mean, speech pathologists were now my new best friends and
Uh-huh.
occupational therapists. And I was like, just soaking in the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said before, I mean, it got to a point after a few years where teachers across my school district were just coming to me at the end of the school day,
Uh-huh.
exhausted,
Mm-hmm.
tired, burnt
Burnt
out.
out.
Yeah.
Jinx.
And then I know, jinx. And then coming to me saying, just tell me what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Just give it to me. And so we would talk about it. Fast forward, it turned into, like you said, a position at the district office
Mm-hmm.
where I was coaching 18 elementary schools, 7 middle schools, 4 high schools, created a team, created an academy, had
Mm-hmm.
behavior support staff. Like it was just wild. It was so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember talking to you and you kind of like looking at me like, there's more. And I'll never, ever forget, Nancy, like
Mm-hmm.
when I first got the guts to go to a conference with you, it was very informal, remember in LA, very
Oh,
informal.
yes. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Okay. And I had
Oh, I
never,
just got the chills. Uh-huh.
right. I had never seen a conference like this before because they had signups.
Mm-hmm.
There weren't normal speakers that were like scheduled. You could like
It
sign
was,
up to
yeah, it
speak.
was an unconference.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
to be a speaker and you looked at me and you were like, you need to speak. And I was like, nope, I'm not speaking. I'm not writing my name on that list. We had a friend, she wrote her name on that list. I was like, I'm not like
Uh-huh.
her. That's not me. And I
Uh,
remember sitting in the auditorium next to you, and all of those people were walking down to like
mhm.
talk about what they were going to speak about. And you were like, Kim, get down there. And
Uh-huh.
I did. And I was sweating. And I remember just saying, listen, Houston, we have a problem. All right.
Uh-huh.
Our teachers need supports. And let me tell you, I've got some magic that we can talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And you looked at me and you were like, that was amazing. I was like, okay, let's
It
go.
was
Now we
amazing.
got to talk about it. I got to talk about it. And I did. And fast forward,
Uh-huh.
I mean, now I get to support entire school districts all across the nation and
Mm-hmm.
schools and individual teachers who are dying to feel
Mm-hmm.
seen
Mm-hmm.
and supported and really fill in the cracks and gaps in the education system from the bottom up. And that's what I do.
And I feel like you're successful because it's a lot of like the word of mouth too,
Mhm.
because the success stories that people are sharing and districts are sharing, other people are saying, what is going on? What is this revolution? And they're reaching out to you saying, help, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, you know
Okay,
what?
so,
I mean,
uh-huh.
honestly, it's hard work, right?
Oh,
Teaching
yeah.
is hard work, but it's heart work. We are
Mm-hmm.
human beings that have
Mm-hmm.
heartbeats, and we're, expected to be these superhumans, and we're just not. So
Mm-hmm.
how do we, again, get on the same page, speak the same language, and support one another? And that's
Right.
what we do.
Yeah. I remember we were sitting at Kava and you did like a little mini I don't want to say conference, but like a mini session. And you were telling me some of your strategies and some of those strategies I've never heard before. And I don't remember what the term is called. It's not mind mapping. You had students like sit and close their eyes and you had them visualize exactly what your expectations were, like what your goals for that. Is it a term for that?
Okay. So I had first heard of this from
Mm-hmm.
a pathologist. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Sarah Ward was her name.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw her speak, and she was calling it visualize your path,
Ah, yes, yes.
or
Okay.
being a mind mime. And when
Mm-hmm.
I saw her talk about it, I was like, well, that's like the same thing in the dance world. You have, like, let's say a 3-minute choreographed dance. Well, it's
Mm-hmm.
exhausting to do that dance full out over and over and over and over again. So sometimes what you would do is you'd
Mm-hmm.
sit down together with your team, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you would use your hands, you'd listen
Mm-hmm.
to music, and you would
Mm-hmm.
act it out, right? And you could
Uh-huh.
visualize yourself doing the routine. You could feel yourself moving through the space and time. And as
Mm-hmm.
soon as she started talking, I was like, well, that makes complete sense. Let's do that in the classroom. Let's
Mm-hmm.
all let's act it out before we move. And I'm telling you,
Mm-hmm.
there was no more of the let's go back and do it again. Nope, that wasn't right. Nope, let's like that's exhausting. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
be that teacher. I don't want to be barking at kids. I want to be happy. I want to have fun. And
Right.
that strategy alone was like a
Mm-hmm.
complete game changer.
That was a huge eye opener for me. And because it's almost like turning it into a game with the kids too. And so they are closing their eyes and visualizing their patterns and the expectations. And it's amazing that, how that works. So
Mhm.
I know as a person, as a teacher, as, a professional educator, I know you're such a planner. You plan everything out. Me, not so much, but I know you're a planner and you set goals. So how does I'm going to bring it into like the classroom setting. How does setting clear teaching goals contribute to creating a reflective classroom environment? And what role does student behavior play in achieving those plans?
Mm, I love that. So, my favorite thing to teach teachers in the very beginning of the school year, and again, this isn't the beginning of the school year for anyone listening, but you can still do it now. It's not too late. What you're going to do is you're going to do a T chart, right? Just a normal
Mm-hmm.
T chart. And on one side, you're going to put how do we want to feel at school? And on
Mm-hmm.
the other side, you're going to put what do we need to do in order to feel that way?
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, when you attach feeling to something, right, you're
Mm-hmm.
either thinking into the future and you're going to dive in and practice how you can move through space and time to actually achieve that, right? To achieve that
Mm-hmm.
feeling, achieve that goal. Or we're actually reflecting back. So think like even personal narratives, right? I always say start with feeling, right? Think of a time,
Mm-hmm.
one time where you felt frustrated, one time you felt overwhelmed, one time you felt angry, sad, whatever. You can imagine it. You can think backwards and respond to it. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing with that future thinking too. And when you're talking intentionally to your students about how you want to feel at school and
Mm-hmm.
what we need to do in order to feel that way, it naturally lends itself into goal setting. I
Mm-hmm.
remember one of the first times I had gone into a fifth grade classroom, and I assumed, of course, thinking that like these kids are going to naturally be able to like create goals for themselves. Like they have the language to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And when I gave them all a post-it after we had done that little T chart, I was like, okay, so what are we going to do? Set a goal for yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
they literally looked at me with like, I don't know, blank stares, right? Wide
Uh-huh.
eyes and dropped jaws. And I was like, write the goal. And I was like, oh my God, they need they need help. They need support on just how to set a goal for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so the sentence frame that I wrote, I'll never forget, and I use this over and over and over. I wrote it on the board was, we will blank so we can feel blank. And I think, okay, so now use what you just did on that teacher. What are you going to do, guys? What are you going to do? What can we do as a class so we can feel? And we all chose one word together. And we said, you know, whatever it was, calm or prepared or successful or happy in the classroom, right? Then they got to choose what they wanted. So I don't know, are you going to follow directions quickly so you can feel successful in the classroom? Great. Are you going to use your time wisely so that you can feel accomplished in the classroom? Awesome. And that alone changed the dynamic in the classroom. And the teacher was like, okay, but are they really going to do it? Like, tell me that they're really going to.
Yeah.
And I said, well, now part 2 is we need to make this visible. So we need to have these goals visible to us. And where do we want to put them? Are you the type of teacher where, you know, you want to put it on the door and every single time they walk out that door and in that door, they're going to tap it, right? That could be an intentional way to do it. Do you want them to put it on their desk and maybe every single time you walk by, you notice that maybe they're, you know, trying to reach that goal. Maybe they haven't reached it yet, but you're celebrating their growth. Maybe you're going to put a little happy face or a little star, right? And then maybe you're going to have an intentional morning meeting conversation around this goal, right? Hey, what was your goal? What did you guys say that we were going to do? Because it doesn't feel calm in this classroom. And I'm telling you, when you start having conversations with kids like that, the behaviors start to go away. You're supporting their social emotional growth, and everybody thrives academically as well.
Wow, that's so powerful. And it works. It's verified and, you know, confirmed. It really works. Right? I mean, because if you're not feeling comfortable, if you're not feeling safe, and if you're not happy, you're not in the mindset to learn anything, right? So it just makes sense. Yeah. But you just word it so perfectly. So you're like, of course, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Physical education can help strengthen your students' confidence, develop social skills, improve cognitive health, and so much more. That's why Sport Time brings you products and resources to help them build healthy habits for life. Sport Time, available only at schoolspecialty.com.
Amp up your students' creativity with Prang's enhanced watercolor paints. These next-generation watercolors were made to stand out. Reformulated for higher vibrancy, greater saturation, and improved blending, your students can bring their ideas to life like never before. Discover more at schoolspecialty.com/prang.
And we're back. I know we talk about this all the time too, but can you discuss the importance of incorporating SEL into the curriculum and how it can help students develop the skills needed to regulate their emotions and behavior?
Yeah. So one of the first things that I remember writing down in a journal of mine was teach social and emotional skills, don't expect them. And fast forward years, and now it's trademarked and it's on merch that I have in my shop because it is huge when it comes to your mindset and the way you are viewing the students in your classroom. The kids that we have these days, right? Kids are different these days. That's what I keep on hearing from all my teachers, right? And the fact of the matter is there are lagging skills in these kids, right? Lagging social skills, lagging emotional skills. Maybe they have difficulty regulating their emotions, even just attending to a teacher. Those are lagging skills in our kids, but we really need to start teaching into them and not expecting it. I love this. And so, okay, question for you, because I just, of course, scrolling through Instagram or TikTok, you're going to see all the fun stuff. So when you think of the spectrum, like Nancy, if I said to you, show me with your hands, like, what does that mean? The spectrum, if I said that.
I would show you something like this, like a wide range, like,
Okay. So you made like a line, and that's usually what we see, right? We see like one end of the spectrum and the other end of a spectrum. But when we're thinking about kids with social learning differences, okay, what I want you to imagine instead is an oven or a stove, right? A stove that has all these different dials on it. Okay. And a dial could be sensory type stuff, right? Like stuff is kind of itchy to you, or it's too cold, or it's too hot, or sounds, something like that, right? That's a dial. And the dial could be turned up or it could be turned down, right? It could be right in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing could be some sort of emotional regulation dial, right? Where you are able to regulate your emotions or you aren't, and you pop off even the slightest thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
The next thing could be executive functioning. So goal setting, planning, making lists. What does that look like? What does that dial look like to you? And all of these dials, right, are the spectrum. And it's really interesting when we start to look at kids and go, okay, where is this dial? Ooh, cognitive flexibility. Like, can they be flexible? If you said, okay, guys, the plan has changed. Sorry, now we have to whatever. Are they going to get angry and upset about it? Or are they cool, calm, collected, go with the flow? That's also a dial. And when you look at kids that way, you kind of go, oh, now I can kind of figure out where they're at. They're not here on the spectrum or here on the spectrum, right? They're kind of here. And as a teacher, it could be overwhelming. You're like, wait, what do you mean, Kim? There's all these dials? Like you just made me even more confused with all these children. Everybody's got all these dials? Yeah. Yeah, they do. And that's why. Oh, go ahead.
So as you're saying this, and I know the listeners can't see all of your hand motions of all, like, you dial, you turning the dials and all these things. I'm thinking of a scene from the movie Inside Out 2.
Yeah.
Because watching that really just explained how everyone has all of those emotions and all of those feelings inside. And when you talked about the dial, like I'm just imagining all of those characters, some of those characters are a lot more active in certain kids, but everyone has those, the same characters and same dials,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like the skill level of all of those, and when kids are coming to us that really struggle with all things social and emotional, right? We call them like pink flags. You're like, wait, I don't know what's going on here, but there's something going on here, right?
Yeah.
How do you teach into that? You can't just say, I don't know, and just kind of keep going or do your regular, SEL lessons. It's not a one size fits all for these kids.
Right. It's not some like outline or some script that you read and it just magically works.
Right. But that's why, it has to be systematic. It has to like live and breathe in systems, right? It has to cover cognitive flexibility and executive functioning. It has to be emotional regulation. And these conversations need to happen all day long, not just for your morning meeting or something.
Yeah, not just for that designated SEL lesson. Now, what if a teacher comes to you and says, Kim, I need help. I'm really struggling managing challenging student behaviors while still trying to achieve my academic goals, like my teaching goals. What advice do you have for me? Like, what would be something? I mean, that's such a broad question, but if somebody says, I'm struggling, give me advice, what would you tell them?
So I had a teacher in South Dakota. She's been working with me for years, at least 3. And she had seen me at a PBIS con. It was like PBIS conference. And she said the one thing, she just said this recently too, the one thing that I said in that hour-long presentation that she remembers from years ago was, don't get furious, get curious. And I
write that down.
Write it down. It's such a fun because as teachers, we want to fix it. Just like be done with the behaviors. Like, what can I do to fix this and get it over and done with? I want to put out that fire, right? But it's also exhausting to play whack-a-mole all day long in our classroom. And so how do we really figure this out? Well, you need to stop and you need to think, what's going on? What's the why, right? What is the why? You said like trauma, anxiety. We were talking about all these things. Is it a social learning difference? Like, what is it? And really get curious about that. I think it's also, you can't take it personally. It has nothing to do with you. It usually, and this comes from another teacher in our community, an incredible special ed teacher. She's like, usually it's one of 2 things. It's either a connection thing or it's a regulation thing, meaning the kid is dying for connection, okay? And we call it maybe like attention seeking or something like that, but really they're dying for connection, probably to feel loved, accepted, whatever it is, seen, heard, right? Or it's some sort of regulation piece where there's lots of emotions, like you were talking about the inside out characters, right? There's lots of emotions going on and I don't have the tools or strategies to regulate myself. And I think as teachers, when we start to take that mindset shift and really think, okay, what's the why? then my go-to strategy always is watch your tone, watch your tempo.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can get lower than a kid, and I mean low. So again, if I was with the babies, I got lower. So on my knees and I'm crouching, right? And if you can get low and really slow with them, you can open up conversations to get to the why and then start to solve it.
Okay. Wow. I'm going to definitely try that. Okay. So as I mentioned in the intro, you have a book coming up. I'm so excited for that. Okay. It's titled Becoming the Bison. Can we tell our listeners what bison represents? Or is that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Becoming the Bison, what insights do you share about the connection between SEL, behavior management, and achieving teaching goals?
Do you want me to talk about the book? Is that what you want me to do?
Let's talk about the book. Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing that happened when I moved out to Texas, so I left California, moved to Texas, and I was like, I'm going to start a business. Well, I was in education and the dance world before that, and I had no business being in business. So what do you do? I hired a business coach, right? Somebody to help guide me and support me because I didn't know what I was doing. And I remember in one of our conversations that we had, she was talking about the difference between bison and cattle. And out here in Texas, there's a whole lot of cows. And so, I mean, we can drive down the freeway and there's cows on both sides. And what do? They just kind of like chill and hang out, right? But there's a difference between cows and bison when it comes to a storm. And again, in Texas, there's lots of storms, crazy thunder out here. And cows will run away from them. They're terrified. They run in the opposite direction. However, the bison, they run into the storms. They are fearless. And so I was thinking, wow, that's been me. That's been me forever. And I mean, life has not been easy. This journey has not been easy. Teaching was not easy. And so I thought, wow, if I could instill this grit, this resiliency, this perseverance, growth mindset, right? This bison mentality in teachers and in students, I guarantee you that we could build this incredible community, right? This powerful group of the next generation who have all these skills that we are trying to teach them. And so I thought, okay, bison it is. Bison, I'm going to embrace this. And the word that kept on coming up all the time was intentional. Because as a coach, I know that the conversations I have with my teachers, with my administrators are intentional. It's always what's going on now and how can I best support you and give you your next step so that you succeed, so you feel good. And same thing in teaching. It was always conversations around, intentional teaching, always goal setting, all these things. And so bison, what I decided it would stand for is be intentional so others notice. Now, it's not that you do something intentionally so that you get approval or you get people coming at you saying, yes, you're incredible, you're amazing. But it truly is just what happens on the other side when you start to act in intentional ways, when you set goals for yourself and you start to move that needle and show that growth. When you are working on those lagging skills, that's being intentional, right? It's these intentional connections and relationships, and other people, they feel different. They notice how that makes them feel. So the book is that. It's also all of my personal stories about all of the crap, for lack of better word. It's been a journey, but we've all had, our struggles and everything. And it really is lifting this veil away from the system of education because our teachers are burnt out and they are not supported in the way that they need to be. And I think, again, leaving a school, leaving a district, leaving a state, and now being able to work with educators and schools and districts across the country, they need support now more than ever. And the system at the bottom has lots of cracks in it. And this social emotional learning, this intentional teaching, whatever you want to call it, it really does fill in the gaps and the cracks that are at the bottom when you're thinking of like your multi-tiered systems of support. That's where we live and breathe down here, because if you don't fill in those gaps and cracks, then no learning is going to take place.
Right. Yeah. Oh gosh, like as you're talking, I'm like, this is such a great episode. I just want everyone to listen to this because I'm learning so much just, having this conversation with you. I bet you have so many, but you have to choose one. Can you share a success story from your work with Teaching Inside Out, where a teacher or a school has successfully implemented SEL and behavior management strategies to create a more reflective and goal-oriented classroom?
Oh my gosh. So recently, I was up in Northern California with my team. So I have a team of mentor teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And we
For
got
my friends too.
I know. I know.
Uh-huh.
But I got to spend some time with 3 teachers. So it was a 3rd grade teacher, a 4th grade teacher, and a 5th grade teacher, all at the same school.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of sat them down and we're having this conversation because we're creating this short film, based on the coaching that we give and the heart-centered coaching that it is and everything and the outcome of this. And so we were talking to these 3 teachers because they have something in common. And the commonality is that they all shared a student. So when this child was in 3rd grade, they had the 3rd grade teacher, then moved on to 4th grade, then moved now in 5th grade. And I named this student, we'll coin him Pretzel Boy, because 2 years ago, when I was in the 3rd grade class, I came in to do some one-on-one coaching, small group coaching. We had teachers watching us in this classroom with this teacher, and she just wanted the kids to come from, their desks down to the carpet. And she had all of her colleagues watching her. I was there, not going to let her fail, right? I would not let her fail. I swooped in right beside her. And Pretzel Boy decided he wanted to just sit at his desk and eat a bag of pretzels.
Oh,
And the teacher looked at me and she was like, Kim, help. And I was like, you're going to let him.
Yeah.
Right? That's what he needs, either to regulate himself or to take some sort of mental break, whatever it was. And she was like, okay. And fast forward 2 minutes later, right? Pretzel Boy was done with his pretzels and came down and joined the group. And she was like, well, it was magic. I was like, no, you just let him. That's all it was. And then fast forward, Pretzel Boy moved to 4th grade. Now, when a kiddo has some social learning differences and, some lagging skills in the area of emotional regulation, right? When they get bigger, behaviors get bigger and behaviors get scarier. And for this 4th grade teacher, she found herself in some predicaments where it was really, really scary sometimes. And so her and I started working one-on-one together, and she joined my community with Celebrate Good Times. And she got some intensive strategies that she could use towards him. And we taught him how to be an independent learner. And we taught him how to regulate his emotions. And we taught him not only the tools he needed to support himself, but now he's supporting other kids who were like him.
Wow.
Fast forward now to 5th grade. And this 5th grade teacher was sitting at the table when we were with them making this films. And she said, I was so excited to get Pretzel Boy in my class this year.
Oh,
She was like, I knew that after being in this work with you and with Teaching Inside Out and having these mentor teachers and getting the guidance that I need, I knew that I was supported and I knew that I had the skills to support him. And I'm telling you, it was just such a beautiful moment, Nancy, between these teachers. They were in full-on tears, and that's just one kid. Think about, again, across their entire school site, year after year after year, they're always going to be a Pretzel Boy, right? He's gonna show up in another body, doing some other things, but you will always have kids like that, and we need to empower our teachers with the tools to support these kids.
Yeah. And instead of just saying, no way, you cannot eat in class, if, like what you said, if that's what he needed to regulate, if that's what he needed at the moment, is it going to kill us to let them just do it? It's right. So it's the fact that you recognize that, saying just let him, and then all of these other behaviors. I mean, I was taking so many notes, whether it's a connection issue or a regulation issue. Like finding out what's going on, like finding out the story behind the why are you acting this way, behaving this way. That is huge. It seems so simple, yet so effective. And those are essential skills for a teacher to know too. But I love that. Don't get furious, get curious. I'm gonna have all these quotes by Kim Gameroz in my room. Okay, so we have a fun segment on our podcast called Tag Your It. And that's where our listeners write in with a question and the guests answer them. And today's question is simple, but I think very meaningful. It comes from Dylan B. And the question is, what is one thing you are most thankful for right now?
I love that. I'm going to say my team and the community over at Celebrate Good Times. I know that. So, I mean, Nancy, I know you've been around since the beginning of time. Celebrate Good Times was just an Instagram, right? Like Celebrate Good Times. Like that's what it started as, right? And it was with an SEL, which it still is. And at the time, I just wanted to get stuff out to the teachers, right? I just like, I'm going to give you anything. I'm going to give you anchor charts. I'm going to give you things to say. I'm going to give you picture books to use in your classroom, anything under the sun. And now it really has morphed into this community. And it is teachers who, okay, brace yourself, pay out of pocket, out of their teacher salary to be part of a community across the country of these teachers to feel seen and to feel heard and validated and celebrated and to get the coaching that they so desperately
need. Yeah. And the support.
So, yes. And I'm telling you, like, I love them. And I know I do so much for them. I mean, they tell me, right? Like I couldn't imagine this community, but like, I couldn't imagine my life without any of them. I live for them. And my team, honestly, it started as a party of one. It was just me going out, flying out everywhere. I was like, I can do this. I'm going to take on the world. And I quickly realized I needed more of me. And so, now I have this incredible team of these amazing, not only amazing educators and teachers in the classroom, but incredible coaches. They really have learned how to coach. And so I am so thankful for this community, for my team that now they travel with me and we do work with schools and districts through my other company, Teaching Inside Out, because again, like we said before, it's heart work, right? It's centered in you. If you don't have a strong core, a strong heart in any of this, you're not going to survive. And you need somebody to look from the outside in so you can teach from the inside out.
I love that. Oh, like nuggets of gold. So many nuggets of gold. Thank you so much. Well, Kim, it's been a pleasure. And I can't wait to see you in person so we can continue this conversation. But for today, thank you so much for being an amazing guest on this episode and sharing your expertise with us. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I adore you.
I love you. Okay, bye.
Good.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Schoolyard Podcast. Remember to pack your curiosity and meet us back in the schoolyard for our next episode. Tag Your It. Now it's your turn to write in with a question, which we will answer here on the Schoolyard Podcast for our segment called Tag Your It. Tag us on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter at School Specialty and hashtag Schoolyard Tag Your It with a question that you want answered. One question will be selected per episode to be answered by our featured guest and myself. If your question is chosen to be answered on the podcast, we'll send you a very special Schoolyard Podcast t-shirt. Class dismissed.